Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the state of Nuxt. Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the state of Nuxt. So my name is Sebastien Chopin. I'm the co-author of Nuxt.js, the intuitive Vue.js framework. And you can find me on the social network with the username @nux, so Nuxt without the T. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, and GitHub, this username. So let's talk about Nuxt v2.14, which is the last release of Nuxt 2. And you may have noticed, but we introduced the full static mode. So full static, we are actually mocking async data and fetch. So it will be converted as a payload.js file, and it will be fetched on the client side instead of calling async data and fetch. We also integrated a crawler to generate all your dynamic pages, so you don't have to define them. And when Nuxt will see a relative link into your page, it will directly generate it as well. And of course, we support offline with the PWA module, so you don't have to do it yourself for the user. So in order to have the full static mode, you simply have to define in your nuxt.config.js the target to static, the default value is server, and then call nuxt generate, and that's it. We also introduce the smart generate. So the smart generate will simply skip the Webpack build step when you didn't change anything into your code base. This means faster redeployment for static generation. It is also platform agnostic, which means that it will work on Vercel, Netlify, or any CI platform without the need to add a plugin. And of course, it works with Nuxt content and any CMS that you can use or any data fetching you prefer. And this is a graph of with and without the smart generate. So on the blue graph, it is the first build, and the green one it is when we only change the content. And you can see at the top right, the stats for the nuxt.org website. And we went from more than 100 seconds to 30 seconds, which is around 3.6 times faster when we change some content into our documentation. Let's see a quick demonstration of this. So here I'm having a blog, and on my index page, I'm using Strapi here. I also have articles and article page. So you can see also in my nuxt.config, I'm using target static. So let's start our Nuxt server with the Nuxt command. So it will launch Nuxt in development mode. So if I go to localhost 3000, we can see the Webpack build. And when it's done, we can see our home page. So I can navigate on my article. And if you look at the network tab, you can see that by navigating, it will call our API, which is Strapi here. So let's update our home page and remove one rocket. I save, I can refresh the page, and I see I only have one rocket now. Because I'm in development, it will call the API. So let's start by calling nuxt generate. For the first time, it will actually build our application. So it will do the Webpack build for production, minifying the JavaScript and transpiling, so it will work on IE. And then it will generate all our routes. So let's start Nuxt in production now. We have a production server listening to this directory which is generated. And now when I navigate on client side, I don't have any more API call to Strapi. I could shut down Strapi here. Let's update our index page by adding 3 rockets this time. If I refresh the page, I won't have any more rockets. I don't have the update. So let's generate again. It will actually skip Webpack since we didn't change any of our view file. And it took 2 seconds to generate all of our pages. So let's start again, refresh. We have our rockets here. Another feature which is quite useful here, if you don't want to wait for the generate, it's a preview. So we created a plugin here. We are checking the query parameter called preview. And if it's not undefined, we will actually call the enable preview feature of Nuxt. And what will happen here, if when I go to the page with the preview query parameter, it will go back and unmock async data and fetch, and it will directly call Strapi here. So if I navigate, I can see my page updated. And if I refresh, it's still the old page. So that is quite simple to activate the live preview for your static generated application. So this landed in Nuxt 2.14, and I really recommend you to try it out. Let's talk quickly about the stats of Nuxt. In August 2020, so last month, we had 1.1 million downloads on NPM. That was really, really nice to see. In July, we hit the first milestone, which is 1 million. So thank you a lot. We had 200,000 unique visitors on nuxt.js.org. So that means a lot of people are reading the documentation, which is good news. And we had 1 million projects created. So this comes from Nuxt telemetry. We will soon open some graph for this. And the global stat, we reached 43,000 followers on Twitter and 30,000 stars on GitHub. Thank you so much for this. Next, I don't know if you saw, but last week we actually released Vue telemetry. Vue telemetry is a tool to discover websites made with Vue.js. It is a website and as well a browser extension for Firefox and Google Chrome. It is made by the Nuxt company for the Vue community. And we have the analyzer and the extension, which are open source. The analyzer is based on Puppeteer, and anyone can add a new plugin quite easily. And of course, it is 100% free. I really dreamed of having a website like this, and it was an opportunity to create it. So we did it. So 7 days later, after launching, we had 1,000 users using the Chrome extension, 8,000 unique visitors, and 4 pull requests merge for analyzing new plugins like inertia.js or Vue Formulate and others. And we analyzed more than 3,000 websites now. So this is a screenshot of the Explore page of Vue telemetry. You may want to take a look and see if your website has been already added here. And you can filter by framework. We support all the Vue framework up there, and most of the UI framework you can use with Vue. Next, and I think you guys are waiting for this, is Nuxt version 3. First, let's talk about the internal changes. We have Webpack 5. We are also upgrading to PostCSS 8. It will be also ported to Nuxt 2, but since PostCSS dropped support for Node 8 and even numbers, we may have to do a minor release of Nuxt 2, as well as some breaking changes. We also added ES build, so the build are quite fast now. We rewritten the core in TypeScript, like Vue 3 did. Vue bundle renderer has been rewritten also on TypeScript and support for Vue 3 and more. And I really recommend you to watch Puya Parser talk, which is next after me. And Vue 3, this is the major upgrade for Nuxt. And we decided to change, since when you start a Nuxt 2 application, your entry point is the page. Now let's start with the app.view. So this is the entry point of your Nuxt app now. So this is like the basic example. And it is optional if you are using the pages directory. You can either choose pages or app or both. It is perfect for global data fetching as well. So you don't have to depend on Nuxt server init or any plugin to do this data fetching globally. And it is great for landing pages or any application where you don't need Vue router. If you don't use pages, Vue router won't be included. So this means that the single app.view will produce 20 kilobytes of JavaScript gzipped, which is the actual size of Vue 2. Let's talk about the routing now, because this is one of the major features of Nuxt. So we have now a powerful routing system based on Vue Router 4, thanks to Eduardo's work. We decided to change the convention for dynamic pages. So page underscore slug becomes page bracket slug. This also allows to have multiple dynamic parameter into one single page. You can also catch subpasses with this bracket and 3 dots inside. We will also support the 404 page, as well as the underscore error.view that will move out from the layouts. Because now we don't support the underscore anymore for dynamic, the ignore prefix is now underscore. So every page you want to ignore will start with an underscore instead of dash. And you can now add routes at runtime thanks to plugins, which was difficult to do before. And since Vue Router 4 handled the sorting for us, it's really, really powerful now. And Nuxt and Nuxt child component become Nuxt page. So one single component for displaying a page as well as a child, which is simpler now, but as much powerful as before. And one of the biggest features after the pages for Nuxt was the data fetching. So as you know, we have async data and fetch. These two will disappear for Nuxt 3. We will support the legacy mode for Nuxt 3 to support async data and fetch, but this is way more powerful. We imagine a new way to fetch data in Nuxt after a brainstorm with Evanu and some core team member of the Nuxt team. It is based on the composition API. You can pause the page navigation until it's fetched, like the current async data, or you can defer it so it will actually feel like fetch and you will handle the loading state in your component. It will support server-side rendering and hydration, so you don't have 2 API calls made when you refresh the page. And most of all, it will work at the component level, which means everywhere from app.view pages to the single component you can include in your pages. And it will support caching, so like SWR. So when you hit the back button on your browser, it won't make an API call, so it will feel even faster. And we will support also a custom data fetcher, so you can use your GraphQL endpoint or any of your library to directly fetch your CMS. So introducing useFetch, which is from Nuxt Composable. So first, you need to import it. We are actually working with Puya to make it global, so you won't have to import it. Then you can directly define an async setup, which is supported by Vue 3, thanks to Suspense. You don't have to worry about Suspense since Nuxt 3, with the Nuxt page component, will directly support Suspense as well as transition. Then this is how it looks like. So you can use fetch and directly give an API endpoint. Use fetch will use the window fetch or not fetch internally and send back directly the data. And it will return an object with data as well as a fetch method. So you can reuse to record this use fetch. And then you can directly return your mountains here, my data, that I can display in my template. So let's talk quickly about the signature here. UseFetch is waiting for two arguments. Option is optional, and request can be either a string, a function returning a string, a function returning a promise, and that's it. So if we want to watch for props, you can use a function. So every time the prop will change, it will call again UseFetch, and the data will be changed, and the template will be updated. You can use a custom fetcher. Here I'm using Prismic to fetch my current page. And as an option, you can give the defer option to true, and it will don't block the client-side navigation. So you will the data return on client-side navigation will be null by default. So you will have to enter the loading state that we will see right after. And you also have the server option, which is true by default to handle server-side rendering. But if you want only client-side data fetching, you can set server to false. And of course, defer and server can be combined together. Let's see a demo now of Nuxt 3. So here I have my empty directory, and I started Nuxt. So we can see on the right my current page, which say welcome to Nuxt 3. So this is not the final screen, but you get the ID. And it states that you can start adding a page, index.vue or app.vue. So we will start directly adding an app.vue page. And I say hello Nuxt 3. When I will refresh the page, I have my content here. And I have auth module replacement. So I don't have view router here yet. So let's add our first page, my index page, and we will display a list of mountains. So let's add our title. And now in order to display my page, I'm going to use the Nuxt page component. Here I have my mountains. And I'm just adding a header so we can quickly navigate between our pages. So this app.vue will also act as a default layout. That's our dynamic page. To fetch our mountain, I will just display the actual slug param. I can see Mount Everest. So let's start using UseFetch now. So I'm importing it. Right now it's app composable, but it would be Nuxt composable. Define my async setup, and let's fetch our mountains. So we have a development API for Nuxt that you can use. And here I'm fetching my mountain, and let's display the JSON we got. And here I have my mountains. Let's copy and paste some nice fancy block. Here I have my if I don't have mountain, it would be display loading. Otherwise, it will do a v4 and display the image and the a title for the mountain with a link to the current mountain. What you can see here is when I navigate to the home page, the data will be blocking, the UseFetch will be blocking, and it will stay on the previous page until UseFetch is finished. If I set defer to true, this time, when I navigate back to the home page, I will have my loading state here. And then it will display. So I can control inside my setup which data will block the navigation or not. So let's go to our slug page. I also passed some markup here, so we have a nice mountain page. So here, what I'm doing here, I'm also calling use Nuxt to get the current context. Since inside setup, you don't have access to this. So I'm getting the $root here. And now I'm fetching the mountain. Here, I'm also getting fetch to call fetch mountain on a button. So let's fetch my mountain. And fetch mountain will be used here on the button. So every time I refresh, it will refresh the use fetch and refresh my template. I have my mountain. As you can see, we have the progress bar at the top. So when I navigate, it is blocking the page like async data. So what I want to do now is move this logic into a component. So I'm creating my mountain.vue component, copy pasting. Instead of using useFetch, I'm declaring a prop called slug that I'm going to use right inside my setup. And I'm changing my slug page to use my mountain component, removing setup here, displaying only my mountain component and giving the $root param slug as the prop. So let's go. I have exactly the same behavior. It is also blocking the page. So let's define a prop called defer that I will give to useFetch directly. So that way you can see how a Vue component can also act differently based on props for data fetching. So now I define mountain defer. So when I navigate, I have my loading mountain state that is displayed. Let's show also, first I remove, you can see it is blocking before displaying the page. Now let's define another prop called server. By default, the value is true to handle server-side rendering. I will define as option to use fetch. And now when I refresh, I can see that it is displaying loading mountain on the server side. And if I remove, adding back server true, I have the server-side rendering displaying my mountain. And that's it for the use fetch. On this example, I only display one usage of use fetch inside setup, but you can have multiple use fetch inside setup, which is really, really powerful. Sorry. Next, what are the other changes for Nuxt 3? These are the most important one. We will have auto import of the plugins directory, like we did for components. In order to support this, we are going to handle hooks inside, so you won't have to handle any ordering inside your plugins. Static directory will become public, which would make more sense, and we also follow the convention by PHP or also Next.js, which I really like for this. App.html will become document.html because we are talking about the HTML documents, and since now we have app.vue, it makes less sense to have app.html. We will have hooks on the app side, so you can directly hook into them like you do inside the modules. So app created, app mounted, app before mount, as well as page start and finish. So this is how I implemented the progress bar using only hooks as by using a plugin. We will also support multiple apps inside one app. This is really useful for theming or for any big company project that needs to split the project into different modules. Like for e-commerce, you will have cart directory as well as product, and inside you will have pages directory and etc. We'll have a functions directory that will be optional, and it will be really useful for server-only execution. So you can think of it as a like netlify function, but inside your next application, you will have access to $functions directly to make this API call. And we will also have first-class serverless support. So you will be able to deploy to the popular serverless hosting directly and more. And the biggest question is, when will it be open source? Right now, it's still in private since we are doing a lot of change and it's not stable, but it will be open as soon as it becomes usable and a bit stable. And first, we want to make sure it works for nuxt.js.org as well as Vue telemetry. So this is how we dog food Nuxt 3. And then we'll open it as an alpha to get together as much feedback from the community. Talking about the Nuxt community, I discovered recently that we had 11,000 members on the Discord server. So this is really nice, a lot of active members, and I'm really happy to see such engagement for Vue and Nuxt. Like I said before, 43,000 followers on Twitter. We tweet a lot, but mostly about news. I like having this nice video or GIFs every time we do a release. I discover also we have 10,000 contributors on GitHub. And I'm not talking about the people that update the code, but also the people that create issues and comment on issues across all our organization, from Nuxt to Nuxt community and all these repositories. And we have 392 donators on Open Collective. So we want to thank these people and companies for supporting us financially. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the talk and have a wonderful day.